Hi there. It's Friday. It's my favorite time of the week. It's time for Your Money and Your Life. Welcome to episode number 3. So, Your Money and Your Life is brought to you by Pink Passport Society, and the topic is personal money management and lifestyle. So, hopefully you've been keeping up and you've watched the previous 2 videos. The first one was just talking about the parameters so you have a sense of what your goals are and what success looks like for you. So that's where we started. And then last week we talked about debt reduction. How can you talk about investing if you are up the eyebrows in debt? So today is going to be about a lifestyle upgrade. So we do talk a little bit about money, but mostly I think we'll just have a little fun today and see what the grand vision looks like for our life. So let's just see. I am actually coming off of a few months break where I just stopped going to events and really just cut back on my internet time and taking courses and other things, which I still enjoy, but I just wanted to take some time to think. And part of that thought process was, asking questions to see if I was still moving in the direction if the direction I was going in is still the direction that I want to continue. And so part of the process, I looked at what I wanted to do in my businesses, any changes, or did I even want to continue? And of course that was one of the ways that we got to these weekly videos. And then of course, work is work, and then hopefully it's something that you enjoy. But the big question, what am I really working toward? And so I, made some notes, did some thinking, and, thought about, well, for Pete's sake, where am I going with this? What is my grand vision looking like? And I probably mentioned it in a previous video, one of the Jeep shots that I put on Facebook, or maybe in my blog. I took, I think it was last year, I went to Millionaire Mind Intensive, and that's with T. Harv Eker. I'm sure most of you probably know that name. And one of the things they talked about, first of all, changing your mindset and undoing some of the lessons that we've learned, from our parents or from our relatives or however we grew up. What were the lessons that we learned? What was ingrained on our mind that may keep us from becoming wealthy? And so one of the tools that they had us use was creating a prosperity zone. And I like my little song. It's called, actually it doesn't have a title, but just for purposes today, we'll just say it's called Living Like the Queen I Was Meant to Be. And that's certainly the first line of the song. I'm living like the queen I was meant to be. Prosperity and abundance flow to me. And I sing that song every morning, and when I am making my deposit into my financial freedom jar. And I like to do that in the morning because, like I said before, it helps set the tone for the day, helps me be aware of opportunities that come up, and what I like to do is, opportunities for found money. My favorite story is that, I was walking to a meeting one day in San Francisco, and I happened to look down, and I literally found a $100 bill. Now, I don't do that all the time, but that was probably, it was a pretty good day for me, and I found like $20 bills before, but, $100 bill was the biggest catch of the day, as it were. And now, did I do that because I sang the song? Probably not, because I hadn't learned the song at the time. But I do regularly see found money, and the thing of it is, bend over and pick it up, right? And so, anyway, the purpose of mentioning the song today is, as I said, talking about a lifestyle upgrade. And so, what am I working toward for myself? And I want you to grab your pencil. And I'm very fond of making lists, so let's make a list of when you think of someone who has quote-unquote arrived, or someone who is wealthy, what does that person look like? Why do you look at this woman versus this woman, or this man versus this man, and why do you say, wow, they have really got it going on, or I can tell they're rich, or whatever it is that, that's important to you. When you look at a quality of life issue and things that you want or are working toward either having or otherwise improving or expanding in your life, what are those areas? So I've already told you way too many times, one of my favorite things to do when I'm just treating myself is shoes. I have too many shoes. I'm saying that out loud. And not everyone wants a closet full of shoes, and I already know that I do not need another pair of shoes, so I'm not talking about shoes today. But for me, when I look at, lifestyle enhancements, what makes me feel cared for, special, um, relaxed, or pampered, or even just what makes my life easier. So for me, and of course there's a trust issue behind this, is, having someone to come in and clean my house. And if I'm going to hire someone to clean my house, I probably want to be there while they're doing it. But for instance, that is something that I'm working toward, or even just sending my laundry out. Is that really how I want to spend my evenings or my weekends? Oh my gosh, you got to do laundry, it's time to wash and fluff. Not so much. We actually use a company as part of the property management sites that I supervise. They charge $1 a pound, and I don't know what a regular load of laundry costs, but it's a couple dollars. I mean, is your time worth a couple dollars to have someone wash and fluff your laundry? Probably. How much time would that free up for you? I mean, usually we throw in a load of wash and we go do whatever else we're doing, and we come back and then we have to fold and whatever and put it away. So, maybe it's only going to save you an hour, maybe it's going to save you 2 hours. But is that worth $10 or $20? I'm going to guess yes. So I'm just hoping that you will take a few minutes to write down some things on your wish list of a better life, or a more carefree or slightly upgraded life. What are some of those things? So what do we say? House cleaning or laundry service. I am, well, you can look at me and see I don't have a lot of time, or otherwise take time to style my hair, so going to the hairdresser on a weekly or bi-weekly basis, that's something that's important to me, and something that I want to do it guilt-free. I mean, I do it sometimes, but it's like, wow, should I? I could really do this myself, but at the same time, isn't it okay to treat yourself well? So those are really simple things that you can consider, or, adding to your list, but I hope that you will take some time to write down just 5 things that would make your life better, or just free up your time. Because when I talk about a lifestyle upgrade, what I'm really looking at, or encouraging you to look at, is raising your expectations. I want you to take some time to amaze yourself on a regular basis. I don't want you to get in the habit of comparing yourself to others in a competitive way, but one of the or I would say this, I do not consider myself someone who is starstruck. I look at people on TV, or I look at actors or famous people, and to me, they've achieved a certain amount of fame or renown, but what's more important to me is what type of character or what type of integrity a person holds as an individual. So, I think about, either politicians or people who are, executives, or whatever you want to say, they have the title, and you can respect the title, but in my mind, it's more important that the person has high character. So I don't compare myself necessarily to others, and that's why I'm saying I'm not suggesting that you compare yourself, but you look at, perhaps you have some examples or some role models and people that you hold in high esteem, and then of course I'm asking what traits are important to you, and what can you do to raise your, I don't want to say raise your standards, maybe that sounds a little weird, but how can you amaze yourself on a regular basis? And maybe by that I mean, push yourself, extend yourself, work outside or reach outside of your comfort zone, and so that you're continually learning and growing and expanding your mind, your worldliness and just becoming more aware of the community or the world around you, I guess, maybe. So what can you do in that regard in amazing yourself? And that's something that I'm encouraging you to look at. And then when I say in lifestyle upgrade, I'm encouraging you to live a purposeful, directional, impactful life. As I've gotten older, as I've grown up kicking and screaming, I just resist it with every fiber, but at some point, I do have to turn that corner. Relationships are so very important to me. And so that when I'm with someone, I want to make sure that my time counts and that I've left a, favorable impression to be sure, but, am I inspiring or encouraging or uplifting people that I come into contact with? So that's what I meant by living a purposeful, impactful, directional life. So those are some thoughts about a lifestyle upgrade. And of course, what we usually do during these videos is talk about, personal finance. And so I do have a couple of headlines to talk about. One of the things, I'm not sure if I mentioned it in the first video, and so today I'm even just touching on it briefly, and we'll talk about it later when I can give you some visuals. One of the way I've told you that I do encourage you to continue to invest, even though it might seem a little scary, but you can make money in any stock market. It just means you have to do your homework. And so whether that's something that you're interested in or otherwise don't have time for, when I talk about investing, I'm thinking stocks. So stocks, you do have to know what you're doing, and you do have to take some time. And then you can look at stocks as far as buy and hold or trade. And when I say trade, I don't necessarily mean day trading, although you can certainly make money. It's just that you have to sit in front of your computer, and that's not really how I want to spend my day. So when I talk about trading, I'm looking at buying at the right time and selling at the right time, or taking profits, so you buy it low, and as it rises, just before it starts to take that dip to go back down, you would get out of that position. So that's what I mean by trading. But that's not what we're talking about today. Today, one of the headlines that I saw, I'm sure most of you have probably heard of Charles Schwab, and just as an aside, they have a really good free online education series that's available, and you don't actually have to be an investor with Charles Schwab, because I'm not, but I have logged on and reviewed some of their videos. So if that's something, if you just want to nibble around the edges a little bit, they do have some good information. And so the headline today was that they have lowered their fees on ETFs. ETFs, this is one of your new terms for today, exchange traded funds. And ETFs are one way that you can buy and hold stocks, and I'm bringing this to your attention as an alternative to mutual funds. I have invested in mutual funds in the past, and I'm sure I will again. Right now I'm working with individual stocks and ETFs. So here we go. ETFs, exchange traded funds, are groups of shares that you can buy, and they're traded like stocks. Okay, so ETFs. So let's just say an ETF fund is similar to a mutual fund because it's more than one stock, but it is in a particular category or a particular industry. Like it might be an ETF for gold, or it might be an ETF for euros, or a single item, versus mutual funds, which buys shares in different companies. So it might be, depending on which type of mutual fund, but let's just say it probably invest in, I'm going to just say 10, that's probably not the right number, but let's say if it's a large cap mutual fund, that means it's buying shares in established companies like Coke, General Motors, Ford, Johnson and Johnson, Kraft Foods, or that type of thing. So if you can name 10 large companies, you could consider that as a mutual fund. And they have mutual funds that do all kinds of things, which small cap, large cap, real estate. Um, but the one way that you would look at mutual funds versus ETFs, or in my case, I'm suggesting ETFs over mutual funds. Mutual funds, they're managed by professionals. Those people have gone to school, they have experience, we hope, and they theoretically know what they're doing. So you're paying for all of that expertise, and you're paying a lot. So if you were investing $1,000, for instance, in a mutual fund, they get you going and coming, because there are mutual funds that are called load funds. That means they charge you when you invest. So whether it's a front load or a back end load, if it's front load, that means they charge you when you put the money in. So even if you went in with $1,000, some of that money is already paying a load, which is a fee. So you're not actually investing your $1,000. You're investing, for round numbers, we're going to say $990. So only your $990 is going to work versus the full 1,000, and it's not even the 990, because each year they also charge you what's called a 12B1 and or management fees. So they kind of nibble away at your investment money, and that's one of the reasons I haven't really been doing a lot with mutual funds right now, just because of the way they kind of nibble around with the fees. So I don't like to be nibbled around. So I am currently looking at exchange traded funds, because again, they're groups of shares, but you can buy them like stocks, and their fees are much, much, much lower. So you have more of your money that's working hard for you versus money that you put into a mutual fund. So there are several well-respected mutual funds. Vanguard is historically a well-respected fund, but again, of course, they do different things, so don't just buy Vanguard because I said that, because even if you look at that, they have, I'm going to say, at least 20 different types of mutual funds, so there's still homework you need to do. But if that's something that you just feel like you just don't want to take the time to do too much research and trading all the time, then mutual funds is one way to invest without having to be on the computer all the time. But you do need to read the prospectus. On the other hand, your exchange traded funds might be a better bet, because you have you can buy and sell them like stocks. You have options, puts and calls, which means you want to say you buy an ETF at $15. Well, you want to buy it at $15, but if it starts to go down, you want to put an automatic stop loss. So that means that if it starts to go down, let's just say $13, you want to sell as soon as it hits $13 rather than waiting until it goes to 10 or 9, right? So anyway, you have some protections or some things that you can do with your ETFs that you can't do with your mutual funds. Mutual funds are a little bit harder to get in and out of. ETFs, you have a little bit more maneuverability. So that was probably way more than I planned to talk about today, but that just happened to be one of the headlines that were interesting. So there are actually, I think the number was $72 billion worth of ETFs. They're really growing because, again, they have all this flexibilities, and companies that, brokers that sell ETFs can still make money, but again, most of your money is going to work harder in an ETF versus than it is going to work in a mutual fund. And then when we have not our math class, but our stock class, we can go into a little bit more detail, but maybe I'm encouraging you to write down the term today and make a note that this is something that you probably want to look at a little bit more closely, and we can cover that in more detail. And another headline that I saw, and we talked about this, I thought this was related to last week's video when we talked about debt reduction. Do you remember when we talked about the snowball? You have, let's just say, 5 bills that you're paying off, and you found that you could come up with maybe another $50 or $75 extra that you could put towards your debt. So snowball is when you take the lowest balance and you put that extra $70, $75 plus your minimum payment only on that one bill. Everyone else gets the minimum payment and you're just concentrating all your efforts on one bill, so it's paid off, then you take all that payment and add it to the next lowest bill. And the reason I'm suggesting the lowest bill is because they get paid off faster and you can see progress, and that will encourage you to keep on. So anyway, that was last week's video, so if you didn't see it, find time to bring it up now and check it out. If you have some debt that you want to get rid of, I was going to say that was a good video, but anyway, maybe it was. And then you can look at that and get some tips and strategies on how to reduce your debt so that you will have money that you'll feel comfortable investing. But this headline was called, it was a blog, and it was, should have gotten the author's name. But, you know, budgeting when you're broke. And it's like, well, I don't have any money. How can I budget? Well, if you don't have any money, then it's even more important that you budget. So, you know, there were some common things that this particular author, and you've probably heard them before, so I'm not really going to go through it. I just want to talk about a couple of the points that she brought up. So let's just say when you have, you know, when you're broke or you don't feel like you have a lot of money, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you know, you might feel a little bogged down, and a budget is probably not something you necessarily want to think about. But, you know, she talked about, you know, call your credit card companies if necessary to talk about, you know, see if you can get a lower rate. Or if you're going to be in trouble, and I say I'm being in trouble, when you find that you might not be able to make a payment, call and let them know so you can make payment arrangements. Don't just ignore the phone, because it's not actually going to go away. But one of the other things that she talked about, which I'm kind of challenging a little bit, which is why I'm sharing this with you, is you know, the number that we hear that we should save is, oh, at least 10 to 20% of our income. Always. Well, you know, if you are quote-unquote broke or paycheck to paycheck, you might not have 10% of your income. So this person's saying, well, don't save. You know, forget about 10%. And I'm just going to challenge that a little bit, because, you know, sometimes people go into debt because they don't have savings. And so to me, even if you can't save the full 10%, it's still important that you save on a regular basis. You take up, whether it's $5 or 5%, take some regular amount of money that you put away into savings every month. Pay yourself first before you pay everybody else, because if you don't have any emergency funds, when something happens, that's going to cause you probably to go back into debt, or otherwise not be able to pull through whatever the crisis happens to be. So just because you're broke, or even if you're feeling broke, I shouldn't say just because, that sounds flippant, and that's not what I mean. Even if your money's tight, it's really that much more important that you do take some time, some small amount at least, that you put away on a regular basis, whether it's $5 or 5%, whatever you can have. You know, $5 is a cup of coffee, as the saying goes. So latte yourself to success and to a brighter future. So put away that $5, put away that $10, but just make sure you put it away on a regular basis. And then the rest of that, you know, and this one I guess I'll agree with, if you find that you are quote-unquote broke or struggling, then you might need to find, you know, additional income. And of course, that's one of my favorites. I always encourage people to have multiple streams of income, because, you know, life is expensive. And even if it isn't expensive, there are things that we want to do. We want to enjoy life. So rather than lower your living standard, because I already started off the video with upgrade your lifestyle, right? So I don't want you to lower your lifestyle or lower your living standards. I want you to have more income, and some of that income I want you to invest. Whereas at the same time, if you need additional income, there are many different ways that you can earn money, even though there's a finite amount of hours in the day, in the week, and you don't want to spend all your time working. Sometimes, you know, take on a special project, do some freelance, you know, that has a beginning and an end. So it's not, you know, you commit a certain number of hours to finish this particular project, to get this particular amount of income, and then boom, it's over and done. Phew, you survived. And then, you know, when you find yourself in a bind, then, you know, go out again and get another special project. Or if you have some extra vitamins and you feel like you have time, then maybe it is a part-time job, or maybe it is a part-time business. Or, you know, our internet is our friend. So how can you make money online? And of course, we'll talk about that in a future segment. So this is something that I agree with. If you are struggling, then it is possible that you might need to get additional income, or if you're working, if you have a job, if the job is not paying enough, can you get a better job? Can you negotiate a raise, or maybe change your withholding on your taxes so that you are, your deductibles, so that you are actually bringing home more income versus having it all go to Uncle Sam, giving him a free loan, and then waiting for your check in April. That's not quite right. I always tell folks to talk to their accountant. He or she should be able to break it down to within $100 so that you can change your withholding, so that you're actually bringing home more cash out of your check versus giving Uncle Sam a free loan, because you're not getting any interest on it. And your money needs to work just as hard as you do. So that was that. Oh, guess what? I got my first viewer question. We were almost out of time, and I almost forgot to tell you that. So I had someone write in. This is a young grandmother, but she happens to have, two adorable little granddaughters, and, she wrote and said, wow, so should I get the girls savings bonds instead of toys? And I don't know about you, but when my sisters and brother and I were growing up, my parents used to buy savings bonds, and we held onto them for a long time. Actually, my grandparents used to buy savings bonds, and that's one reason I was familiar with it. And I don't know if you've ever bought any, but it's always about how can your money work hardest for you. How can you get the best bang for your buck? Well, I just want you to know savings bonds are not what they used to be, and they're not actually paying very much right now. Was it Series E and double E, and I'm not sure if it was H or I, but they kind of work the same. They have a fixed interest rate, and then also it's tied to an index. In this case, there is tied to the inflation. Fixed interest rate right now is 0, as in goose egg, 0%, and the inflation rate right now, which is not really true, but for this measurement, it was 1.1%. So essentially, excuse me, you pay for the savings bond at face value. So if you want to buy a $50 savings bond, you pay $50. So really the only thing that you're making is that 1.1% interest. And for instance, a Series double EE savings bond would take 20 years to double. So if you bought a $50 savings bond today, in the year 2032, it would be worth, wait for it, $100. Huh? How about that? $20, 20 years for $100. That's not really working very good for you. So a couple of alternatives I suggested for her were the Coverdell Education Savings Account. So many of you may have heard about the 529 plan, which is these plans are run by states, so they're going to vary wherever you buy them. So anyway, you put money away for the child's education, and the money must be used for education, and that's all. But the reason I like the Coverdell Education Savings Account, it used to be called the Coverdell IRA account, which was really weird because it's not a retirement account. It was always for children's education, so that's why they changed the name from Coverdell IRA to Coverdell Education Savings. Anyway, that was history. What it does is, again, it is for the child's education, and that includes, even from elementary school, private school, college, or technical school, or whatever, anything that is educational, the books, tuition, that type of thing. But what's good about this is, number one, the investment vehicle options are better than what you can get through a 529. That's the first good thing. And then secondarily, let's just say you have 3 kids, and they're all adorable. They're age 2, they're age 6, and they're age 10. So, the 10-year-old, what do you have? Maybe 8 years if you're planning to use money for college. So the money is going to be invested and grow for 8 years. And then let's just say that you send little Johnny off to college at 18, and there's still money in the account where you have these other 2 kids. So you don't have to set up individual accounts for each child. You can have one account, and money that's not used for little Johnny can be used for adorable Mary or Sassy Sue. How do you like my names? Because it's been a weird week. So anyway, so you can let that money stay in the account and roll over for up to 30 years. So that can cover your kids and their kids. And maybe 30 years, that's almost great grandkids. So you have a lot more options with the Coverdale. So I really encourage you to look that up. You can go to the irs.gov, but let me tell you, that's painfully dry and hard to understand what your options are. So if you go to Motley Fool, actually I think their site is actually called The Fool, FOOL.com. But even if you Google Motley Fool, you'll still get to their site. And they have a much more user-friendly explanation of what the Coverdale Education Savings Account is. But my other favorite recommendation for her was to buy stocks. Yep, I'm still trying to get folks to buy stocks. So just think how cool that would be if the child is 5, or maybe 5, 10 or whatever, so that you can have a conversation with them that they can follow. But when I say individual stocks, I don't mean one share unless that's all the money you have. Go ahead and buy one share. That's a beautiful thing. But let's just say you could buy 10 shares of Marvel Comics, which they're making those great movies. What is that? Iron Man, the Avengers, and the Hulk. So that movie franchise has caused that stock. For instance, for me, I bought it for my son, I want to say for his 15th birthday, and at the time it was $13 a share. And shortly thereafter, it went up to $17 a share. I said, oh my gosh, well, I better get some for me too. So he kept his shares, and I bought some shares for me when it was 17. And at the last time I checked, which it's been a little while, it was up to $39. So, it was just a couple shares. I just wanted something that my son, would be familiar with and have hopefully some slight interest in, and that's why I said buy shares that they would know something about, and that way it's a good way, an educational tool to get them interested and learning about money at an early age. So and then Disney came and bought Marvel, so it's growing, but it's growing a lot slower than it was when it was just under the Marvel company, under its own name. But Nike, or who is that, Mattel, that makes toys, or I guess kids are very technologically savvy. You could buy Apple shares, but I understand it's over $700 a share right now. So you might want to start with something different, unless you're a very indulgent grandmother. So we are running out of time. But anyway, so that was my viewer questions and answer is no, I don't recommend that you buy savings bonds because you're not making anything right now, and it's not really the best use of your money. I would recommend instead buy individual stocks in something that kids are familiar with, and that way you can use that as an educational tool and help them learn about money early, and or the Coverdale Education Savings Account. So it's not necessarily a tool for them to learn about money, but it will certainly help you pay for their education as they get older, and you have lots of investment opportunities. So you know what? We're out of time, and there was actually something I didn't get to, which was today's money strategy, so we will save that for the next video, and which will be next week. I will be out of the country next week, so I am going to have to figure out somehow to get the video recorded, episode number 4, how exciting, and get that online before I leave, and so that you don't have to miss out. And I think it's just a fine time to mention that I hope you find these videos helpful. I hope you find them useful and educational and maybe a little inspirational, so that we will have, we have several more weeks until for this last quarter, which I'm going to guess that's probably 12 to 15 videos, depending on how many Fridays there are coming up. So for you to get used to this type of information and, start working on your plan. And I say that because beginning in January, I will open up Kaizen coaching. Kaizen, if you remember, is Japanese for continuous improvement. And that's a philosophy that I live by, and that is how I work with my clients, is to help them continuously grow and move forward. So you pick an area, whether it's personal finance, personal development, or small business, my other personal favorite. So I will open up my coaching for 5 clients at a time so that everyone gets enough attention. And if that's something that you think you will be interested in, just make a note. Kaizen coaching coming in January 2013. So that, my lovelies, is today's episode of Your Money and Your Life. Hope it's been fun for you. It's been fun for me. And I look forward to talking to you again next week. Have a prosperous week until then. Ciao.